How's it, Grant here, and welcome to another camera comparison with the iPhone 13 Pro. Today I have it up against the very best from Samsung for now, because we all know the S22 is right around the corner. But today we've got the S21 Ultra, and the iPhone has its triple camera system on the rear, all 12 megapixel sensors with its wide, ultra wide, and 3x telephoto lens. And so Apple is supposed to improve the low light performance here, and technically the hardware has improved to improve low light. They also have a brand new image signal processor and a new software processing with its smart HDR4. And of course, we all know that the S21 Ultra has its 108 megapixel main sensor. It's got a 3x telephoto lens, a 10x periscope zoom lens, and a 12 megapixel ultra wide. So I'll tell you right now that the iPhone 13 Pro is not going to compete in long range zoom. That is definitely going to go to the S21 Ultra. But we're going to see if Apple's claims of improved low light performance has really held true and how it compares to the S21 Ultra that was released back in January of this year. So like I always do, I'm going to show you a bunch of photos and videos in both good and low light conditions to help you decide which of these two camera systems are best for you. So go ahead and check out all the photos and videos for yourself and let me know what you think. So we're going to do a rear video camera test here on the iPhone 13 Pro in that Sierra Blue and the S21 Ultra in that matte black. And you can see they're both recording from the rear facing cameras. And this is being done at 4K 30 frames per second from the ultra wide angle lens on each. So as you can see here, it's a very clear day. There's no clouds. So very clear blues and very clear greens here. So you can see how the color reproduction may differ between these two cameras here. And I'll check the exposure real quick because sometimes when you pan down, you can see there this blue sky will kind of blow out, but both of these are handling the exposure very well. And you can see what the shadows in the trees look like a little bit more on the S21 Ultra, which isn't a bad thing. Some people really like that. They want to see that shadow definition there and contrast. But let's go ahead and move into the main lens. So iPhone 13 Pro, S21 Ultra. So let's go ahead and see what these two main lenses look like and how they compare as I pan around. Let's go ahead and pan over to that cell tower and we can test zoom like I normally do. So 3 times telephoto there on the iPhone 13 and same 3 times telephoto on the S21 Ultra. iPhone, you get a max 9 times digital zoom here at 4K, and you still have 10 times periscope zoom on the S21 Ultra, all the way up to a max 20 times digital zoom on the S21 Ultra there. So let's back both of these out to 1 times. Main lens and test autofocus here on the post, first with the iPhone 13 Pro. Really snappy autofocus from the iPhone here. And refocus away, and 1 more time. Also really nice shallow depth of field or blurred out background there, natural bokeh. Now let's go with the S21 Ultra. And it focused up and away. And focuses up and away. So a little bit longer to focus on the S21 Ultra with that large sensor. And 1 more time. But nice natural bokeh there because of it. And so let's go ahead and test stabilization by walking down the stairs. So you can see how stabilization compares here in 4K between these two. And let's go ahead and start jogging to test out Apple's sensor shift inbuilt stabilization and how it compares to the S21. And we'll pull up here and pan up into the sky so you can see how it handles that harsh afternoon light. Everyone, so this will be a front-facing camera test between the iPhone 13 Pro in Sierra Blue there and the Galaxy S21 Ultra in matte black. You see they are both recording from the front-facing cameras at 4K 30 frames per second here. And so I'm starting out my usual testing spot outdoors in some shade because it provides some good even light so that there's no harsh light on the cameras. You can see the optimal video quality here with these front-facing cameras. But I can go ahead and step into a little bit of a harsher light where the sun will actually shine through right on me right now, as you can see here, and what that does to the image quality, how these phones are adjusting for that. And as you step back this way, I'll also pan around so you can see with the sun directly behind right now. So a lot of phones would really blow that out where it'd be completely, you couldn't really make out any detail, it'd be just completely too bright. But both these phones are actually doing a very good job of keeping the shot balanced here. So I'm still exposed in focus and the background isn't just a complete blurred out white mess. So pretty good job of balancing that out and processing on both these front-facing cameras. And as I pan around back this way to the start, you can see everything is in very good, clear exposure and focus and definition there. So I can also start walking to test stabilization, so I can see what that looks like here from each of these front-facing cameras. But there's a quick front-facing camera test on the iPhone 13 Pro and Galaxy S21 Ultra. Let me know what you think. Hey everyone, so here's a low light video test from the rear facing cameras on the iPhone 13 Pro and Galaxy S21 Ultra. This is the ultra wide angle lens on each at 4K 30 frames per second. And this is where Apple has claimed to make the most improvement here, which is low light performance on their ultra wide angle camera. To me, from what I see in the viewfinder, the S21 is brighter, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. I think Apple's controlling the lights a little bit better. And you'll also notice that the color temperature is much warmer on the iPhone than it is on the S21 Ultra. And so we'll go ahead and move into the main lens right now on the iPhone, and then on the Galaxy S21 Ultra. And you notice that things are a little bit brighter. More light is let in by this main lens on each phone, as you can see here. Same thing though, iPhone warmer temperature, S20 Ultra a little bit cooler. You can see there the definition of the trees got a little bit clearer because these main lenses are letting in more light. You can see a little bit more in the scene. You can see they're also flaring that really bright street light out a little bit more than the ultra wide angle cameras were. More so on the S21 Ultra than on the iPhone. So let's go ahead and pan this way and start walking to test stabilization. And so we'll see how, usually stabilization suffers a little bit in low light, a little bit more jitters. So pay attention to that, but we'll also move over to a much darker area. So that was obviously some pretty ideal lighting conditions if we're gonna film in low light with all that light around. But we'll see how they perform in a much darker area as around this corner. And both phones are starting to really brighten up the scene more than what I'm seeing with my own eyes. It's much darker out here than what these cameras are showing you, at the expense of a little bit of noise there you can see in the sky. And so we can pan up into that sky, and it's not completely pitch black out here. There is some light pollution, but you can see there both these phones are really brightening up the scene a lot and introducing a little bit of noise there because of that. As we pan this way, we'll go down this alleyway, which is quite dark but has some mixed lighting, a little bit of light to accentuate things a little bit, so you can see what that looks like here in this kind of lighting in 4K on both phones. So let me know what you think of the low light performance here on the iPhone 13 Pro and Galaxy S21 Ultra. Hey everyone, so here's some low light video from the front facing cameras of the iPhone 13 Pro and S21 Ultra. This is being shot at 4K 30 frames per second, and this is my usual testing spot to start out with in some pretty good lighting situation, so you can see what these cameras can do in some pretty ideal low light conditions. And right off the bat, you'll notice that the iPhone has a much warmer temperature than the S21 Ultra. Again, I think something of what's real or true to life is somewhere in between. It's not quite as warm as the iPhone and not quite as cool as the S21 Ultra. But if I just lean more towards which one is more accurate, slightly edge to the S21 Ultra because it's not quite as warm as what Apple's showing. And so as you can see, there's some bright lights all around me here. You can see how the front facing cameras are handling that. And let's go ahead and start walking just to test stabilization, so you can see what that looks like and how that compares here as I walk over to a bit of a darker area. So we'll move over to a much darker area to test these front facing cameras in a little bit more difficult lighting condition here. And I'm passing by a fountain to my right, so we'll test out the microphones and how they handle that background noise there. And we'll pan around here all the way around so you can see the really bright street lights behind me and how these cameras are handling that. The S21 Ultra is flaring that out a bit more from what I can see, and Apple's handling that pretty well with their iPhone. So let's move back over here to the darker area and pause here so you can see this situation here side by side. So this is a much darker area right now, and both of these cameras are brightening up the scene a little bit more than it really is. Again, Apple and iPhone is still more on the warmer side, S21 a little bit cooler. So I think that's going to do it for this camera comparison test here. So let me know what you think about all the photos and videos that you saw from the iPhone 13 Pro and Galaxy S21 Ultra. Do you think Apple's really improved their low light performance? I think they have, marginally, maybe not as much as they have probably claimed, so it's not an exaggerated improvement, but it is a marginal improvement there. I still think the S21 Ultra is doing pretty well. It just depends on how you like your low light photos. If you want it to look more true to life, or do you want the night mode shots which look more like daylight? I think for the daytime shots, it's going to come down to which one you prefer. I think both of these are boosting the colors a little bit, so none of these are going to give you really true to life colors. Although Apple does have its new photography styles or photo styles that you can choose from to make it warmer, cooler, more dynamic, etc. So you can play with that to set that to your liking. And of course, the S21 Ultra does have Pro mode where you can play with that to get the colors and everything else to your liking as well. So those are my quick thoughts here about the two phones here and how they compared. But do let me know what you thought of all the photos and videos. Which one did you prefer and why? Leave me a comment. I'm interested in knowing. Any other questions or comments I can help answer about either of these devices, leave them in the comments below as well. I'll try to answer what I can. And as always, thanks for watching.